And I'm not sure why y'all hate LinkedIn so bad. Hey y'all, I'm Dr. Sonia Daniels, and I'm so happy to have you back for today's video. So I am a business owner. My firm, S. Daniels Consulting, has been in operation for a little over 8 years now. It's been such a phenomenal experience of growth and learning, not only as a first generation entrepreneur, but a founder of a firm. And so I've learned so many lessons in the past 8+ years, and I'm always excited to share those lessons with y'all. Now, in the work that I do, I have the privilege of studying the intersections of people, power, and patterns. And so those are things that really occupy a lot of my time and my brain space. What I really love about my growth journey is being able to share with others what I have learned along the way myself, which brings me to the topic of today's video, which is called Ask Doc. Now, I get a lot of messages from folks, whether folks who know me personally, who are interested in starting their own enterprises. I often interact with a lot of people across various social media platforms, whether that is my interactions with people on YouTube. I am very active on LinkedIn, which y'all be hating on LinkedIn for some reason. And I'm not sure why y'all hate LinkedIn so bad. I love LinkedIn real bad. It's a site where I use not only for my engagements with being able to meet new people and network digitally, but it's also a funnel for how I get in clients, essentially a lead generation tool as well. So if y'all don't know how to use LinkedIn, just say that. But don't be hating on LinkedIn, because it is a very valuable platform if you're a person like me who's in business. And so there's a lot of different reasons why I use LinkedIn. So the purpose of today's video is for me to be able to actually answer a few questions that I've gotten from various people on various platforms. And so I want to share my responses with you. So you'll see me looking over. I have my questions on the screen next to me. So I'll just be candidly answering these questions that I've gotten, and I hope that there's something that you can take away from today's conversation. So the first question is, how do I make quick money? So that is a very interesting question. It was a very interesting question when I got it. And I want to just give y'all some insights about my beliefs around money in business, especially when we talk about quick money, right? One of the things that's been really important for me, or has been a really huge area of growth for me as a business owner, is my relationship with and to money. I think a lot of us might have similar stories where perhaps we were raised in environments where money was not necessarily seen as a tool, but perhaps seen as something that was scarce. So maybe there just wasn't a lot of it to go around, right? So when you grow up with that belief that resources are hard to come by or resources are scarce, it puts you in a situation where you believe that money is just not accessible, or you just don't have the access to money the way you need it to, right? Or the only reason you have money is to pay bills. Entering into the business world, when I first started my business, I didn't even realize there was a such thing as understanding your relationship with money. And so I would say for me, over the past year, I've really had to do a lot of work of really understanding what my relationship is to money and my understanding of how money is used. Now, I know that might be a concept that seems philosophical or very esoteric, but it's really important to understand if you are a person who is entering the business world, because essentially that positions you to have access to unlimited amounts of money. The beauty of business is that you can continue to generate money time after time. There's really no cap to it. And so it's important to really understand what money is, how it's used, and how you need to be able to relate to money for the benefit of not only yourself as a business owner, but then the world around you. It's really important to be able to understand that. So for me, I had to do a lot of learning and understanding how I actually relate to money. One of the things that's been really important to me in understanding how money is used, but especially when we talk about business transactions, is really important to understand the mindset around those transactions and how that money is then funneled through those transactions. Now, this is the thing. For me, again, my opinion, right? When it comes to quick money, I don't believe in anything related to making quick money. What I've learned over the past 8 years in business is that one, it's important to understand the people that you're doing business with and also understanding their mindset around money as well. One of the biggest, it's kind of a running joke in business, but it's really a real life thing, but a lot of people joke about it, is that people will say that your clients are customers who come to you and they don't have a lot of money to spend and they're operating in a space of urgency, will penny pinch you and nickel and dime you till the end of the engagement, right? They're going to always find something wrong in the engagement because they're trying to really get the most out of every single penny that they're investing into that project. I've dealt with that, especially in my first few years of business, where I was also operating in a scarcity mindset, where I was trying to make quick money and really just really get quick money to pay a bill or get quick money to really feel like I was fulfilling some need in my business or for myself personally and financially. And so I've learned that quick money is not ideal. I have shifted my business model to focus on high ticket, low volume engagements because I have learned that when folks are entering into the business space with a scarcity mindset, I am not able to do my best work. And so for me, I don't believe in making quick money. I also try to stay away from quick money as well, is because it just doesn't feel in alignment with who I am as a person and how I function in the business world, right? So I believe in really intentional engagements with the clients and organizations that I work with. And so for me, those are usually not quick processes. One, because we're not making a quick decision to move the work forward quickly. A lot of the conversations on the front end, even before we close the contract, really do focus on a lot of diagnostic conversations to even learn if we'll work well together. So none of the work that I do tends to be quick anyway. And so quick money is not really involved in that process. I also want my clients to feel comfortable and confident with the money that they're spending with me. That's really big when it comes to how I function in integrity with my business, but also how I like to be a good steward of the work that I'm doing. I've been in positions where I've hired companies to do work for me and it wasn't delivered on. And so for me, that's another reason why I choose to move a lot slower in my business engagements, because I want to make sure that stewardship is happening on both sides and that people essentially feel satisfied with the work that I'm doing for them, right? And so I say all that to say I don't believe in quick money. And I also believe that not all money is good money. I tell people all the time, if an engagement, if a transaction is going to cause me my peace, then I really don't want to deal with it. And so I try to make sure that every business partnership I enter into, it comes from a space of alignment and mutual understanding, and that's usually not a quick process. So that's my thoughts on how do I make quick money. I don't believe in making quick money, so I really can't help you answer that question because that's not how I tend to operate in business. The next question is, how do I find and attract clients? This is actually a really good question. Of course, I mentioned I own a consulting firm. And so the work that we do is all client focused work. So essentially, when it comes to consulting, what I do is that I sell knowledge to people. So I study, as I mentioned, I study people, power, and patterns. And so what that means is that I'm able to really understand how organizations work just really intimately and in depth. And so in the way that the world works in general is that it's all based on patterns. And then people, of course, operate within those patterns. And then we all have different levels of power and then power dynamics. And so all of those really help me understand how organizations work intimately. And so a lot of the work that I do, I'm able to go into organizations and help them really understand not only where they're stuck, but also how they are making decisions that are taking their organization organization in the wrong direction and really essentially costing them time, money, and people resources, which is really big to organizations. Those things are really important. And so I like to really help organizations slow down their decision making, slow down the work that they're doing, really understand the risk that is involved in how they function as an organization to help them then recenter themselves and go in the right direction. So that is essentially the work that I do. And so a lot of my clients come to me because they might be at some kind of space or some type of impasse where they feel like they are stuck, they're not able to move forward, they're not seeing the results that they would like to see in their work. For a lot of companies and organizations, this can look like them not meeting their revenue goals. A lot of the organizations I actually work with, the challenge that they're having is turnover, or they're not able to retain their customers and clients that they work with. A lot of tension within organizations. So I have a knack for sensing tensions within an organization and really being able to find the source of that tension. And a lot of it is conversations that are being avoided, people making decisions around the actual problem. I have the ability to be able to help organizations figure out those issues and then get unstuck and move forward. And so the way that I initially used to get clients when I first started, well, really, now that I think about it, this has always worked really well for me. Is having relationships, which is the foundation of any business and how businesses get clients in. A lot of it is relationship based. However, the key in consulting, because I sell knowledge, is that it requires people to have a deep level of trust and also like me to be able to want to work with me, because consulting work can be really intimate and personal work, because essentially what I'm going in doing is going into organizations when they're not at their best. I'm going into organizations when they're not at their best. So I tell people, it's like you're going to somebody's house and there's dirty dishes in the sink. Now, I'm from the South. And so for us, that's a big thing. When we have company over, you're not coming into a dirty house. I'm about to clean these dishes real quick. Give me 10 minutes before you come over, right? And so it's the same way when I do consulting, because I'm going into organizations where their house is not the cleanest. There is a lot of, I guess, like worry and anxiety that can come with that. And so for me, because it's a very personable and intimate experience, there's a lot of trust that has to live in the clients that I work with. And so from the beginning of time, I think back to 2017 when I first started the business. My first few clients were from word of mouth. Funny enough, from like previous jobs that I had where folks knew my working style, knew what I was capable of. And so they would call and say, hey, we have this project we would like you to help us with, or we have a workshop that needs to be facilitated. Do you have the ability to do this? Yes, of course. Now, over the past 8 years, my work and the way I attract clients now really comes from, and alignment is a word I'm gonna use all the time. That's really the basis of the my YouTube channel. A lot of the work that I talk about is really living in alignment and being in alignment. And so it's no different from my business as well. I am able to really speak to results, and I'm also able to speak to the process of building my business, which I think is relatable and resonates with a lot of the clients I work with, because then we're building in real time together. I'm then able to use the lessons learned from navigating those challenges and then implement that into my consulting work as well. So for example, last year in 2025, y'all know the economy it's been a lot. And so I did a full 180 pivot in my own business because I sensed that there was going to be a lot of turmoil in the economy. I needed to make some adjustments in my business. And so because I'm a data nerd, I like to also track results as well. And so the results of my pivot allowed me to then use that and build frameworks to help other organizations pivot as well when it comes to how they function in their businesses. And so a lot of my clients are attracted to me because I'm able to really speak to how I actually consult myself in my own business and then use that to be able to help clients navigate similar, if not the same challenges, regardless of industry, regardless of the type of organization, or regardless of the type of enterprise an organization is, whether it's a nonprofit, a philanthropic organization, a global corporation, y'all. all of these organizations, we all have the same issues, right? We're dealing with people, we're dealing with personalities, we're dealing with challenges with the market and the economy. Even though we all do different types of work, we all tend to have the same type of issues anyway. And so that's been really helpful for me as a consultant as well to attract a lot of different clients, because I'm able to recognize that typically organizations pretty much have the same challenges when it comes to roadblocks that are faced in the work. So, to answer the question more concisely, I attract a lot of my clients through being able to speak to results of just the work that I've been able to navigate. I also put out a lot of thought partners. I also do a lot of thought leadership work. So, most recently, I was able to get published in Forbes and also Fast Company. I've had some publications that came out last year where I was able to really lend my voice to leadership and business and career and workforce, which are topics I really enjoy talking about. So that's also another way I'm able to attract clients as well, because I'm able to really speak to what it is that I know works, because I've done it in my own business and I've done it for other organizations also. But one thing that's really important in business is to be good to people, be kind to people, be helpful to people, show value to people as well. So because I operate that way first, where I like to just provide value to people, that often works really well for me when it comes to attracting clients. Most of my business now comes from word of mouth, which is such a phenomenal place to be as a business owner, where folks are literally telling other people about me, so that trust is already built. And then from there, we just have to build up the likability factor. And I like to think I'm really likable, so that's not really a hard thing to do. That is essentially how I track clients. What's important for me is that I also am very clear on the type of clients that I want to work with. So in my business forecast, in my operating plan, I have a section that talks about my ideal client profile. And so I know a lot of times in business, people are like, "Ooh, build your client persona." So for me, my ideal client profile goes as deep as, how do they make decisions? How do they relate to money? How do they function after an engagement ends? Those things are really important to me, because then when someone comes to me and they want to do business with me, because I've already built that ideal client profile, I'm able to then really assess on the front end of if I want to work with this person or not, or if we are in alignment to do the type of work that we want to do together. So that is what it looks like when it comes to how I attract clients. All right. The next question is, how do I pivot my business? Which is actually a perfect segue. I like how I alley-oop that back to myself. So how do I pivot my business? So pivoting is very interesting. I find pivoting to be very fun. I have made a few videos, I think some shorts, about one, decision making, how to use that to your advantage, but also not feeling afraid to make mistakes or not being ashamed to make mistakes. I think I have two shorts where I talk about that. But what's important in pivoting your business is understanding when it's time to pivot and why you need to pivot. I would say in business, experimentation is really important. So every day, if you're showing up in business like me, I love my business, y'all. I love my business real bad. And so for me, I'm always showing up, trying things in business, because it's helping me understand what's working, what's not working. It's giving me the opportunity to take my ideas and actually execute on them. Because if you're not executing your ideas, then what are you really doing to know if something is going to work in your business, right? So for me, I'll talk a little bit about how I knew it was time to pivot in my business last year. So last year was year 7 for me in my consulting company. And so the biggest thing that really prompted me to pivot was my branding. So I didn't like my brand. I didn't like the way my brand looked. It didn't feel like me. It felt very heavy. It felt very corporate. And it just didn't match like my persona and who I am as a person. I am very fun. I'm very lighthearted. I just love color and I love bright things. I love life, right? And so my brand didn't feel like me at all. And so because I am the face of the brand and the name of the brand, my company is literally named after me. I wanted to make sure it felt like me. So that was like key number one reason why I felt like I needed to pivot, because the business just didn't feel like it matched who I was as a person. So it felt like it needed a new outfit. That's what I always tell people. It felt like it was just time for a business makeover. So that was number one reason why I felt like I needed to pivot. But two, my revenue was just not matching what I needed it to match based on some goals I had set for the business. I had a team at the time, but contracts weren't coming in because a lot of the clients and a lot of pending engagements I had, a lot of folks were experiencing what's called decision latency. And so what that means is that people are just slower to make decisions when it comes to spending money to outsource certain services. And so again, as a consulting firm who sells knowledge, we started running into a position where folks knew they wanted to hire us, but they were kind of moving slow in terms of wanting to actually enter into a contract and cut the check. Again, I get it. It is what it is. That's the nature of the work that we're in. And so it's similar this year as well, where folks are a little slow to make decisions. And so that requires a little bit more creativity, but also a reason why, if you're thinking about consulting, I encourage you to have multiple streams of income so that all of your money is not coming from just like consulting projects. You also have money coming in from other sources of revenue as well. So think about that if you're thinking about starting a consulting firm. So the consulting projects were moving a little bit slower. And so for me, I knew that I needed to make some major decisions. One, so aside from like rebrand and giving the business a new outfit, I needed to do a reduction in workforce because payroll was my biggest expense every month. And so the money wasn't coming in as fast as payroll was going out. And so I just needed to cut back. And so that's what I did. And so of course, I believe I handled that the best way I did by making sure the folks they had everything they needed to make that transition out of my company into whatever the next step in their career would be. So that was another part of the pivot as well. And I think the third thing that really prompted the pivot for me was that my services started to feel a bit out of touch of what I knew I was really good at, but also like what I enjoyed doing on a daily basis. And so one of the biggest things I find really interesting is that in the consulting world, a lot of consultants tend to be generalists, which I would like to consider myself a generalist as well. I know a lot of things. I know how to do a lot of things really well. But the challenge that comes in consulting when you're a generalist is that you're doing a lot of things at the same time. And so you're essentially not only expanding your capacity, but at times stretching yourself thin. And so that's not really helpful in the consulting world. But especially for me as a solo operator of my company, it's just me doing most of the work, and it's brain work, right? So I'm always thinking, I'm always assessing, I'm always evaluating, having to codify information, having to aggregate data. Like that could be a lot of work on the brain. And so I got to a point when it was time for me to pivot. I narrowed down my scope of services to four pillars of what we offer. And so it felt right to me, right? A lot of this was just like using my intuition to say, hey, this is what I feel like I needed to do. The beauty of niching down to have four pillars of offerings as opposed to offering a bunch of different services is that it's easier for me to articulate when I'm talking to people and they're asking me what I do. It's easier for me to articulate, hey, this is what we offer, or this is what I want to help you accomplish, right? Because in the consulting world, it's all about transformation. It's not about inspiration. And so I have to be able to speak to transformation based on what I've been able to actually accomplish from clients who have experienced transformation in working with my company. And so it was the rebranding, it was the revenue data, and then it was the services that were like what prompted me to do my full pivot, which I called the Big Pivot 2025. I'm all about themes, and so I had to give it a theme. I had to give it a name. I made it like this big deal, but it was really fun for me to pivot. The pivot will be 1 year old in March, and so I'm really looking forward to taking a step back and assessing where the business has gone or what I've accomplished in the 1 year since I did the Big Pivot 2025. Now, being able to also develop a pivot framework is something that I'm also able to use again with the clients and organizations that I work with, because I've been able to navigate it myself and really seeing success in being able to pivot. My brand is a lot cleaner. It's a lot fresher. I've gotten a lot of compliments on the brand, and people say that it really speaks to me and who I am, my personality. So I think that is really helpful too. I've been able to have a clearer picture on just my revenue data, how much money is not going out, given that things have slowed down a lot in the market. But also it's position me to be really creative about where money is coming from and coming through into the business. That's why I love content creation so much, because I think it really allows me to be able to speak to being an authority in my field, but also thought leadership, allowing myself to be visible and really share what I do and help people really build trust with me in the work that I do also. And it's also a stream of revenue for the business too. So I'm not having to always rely on money coming from projects. I can also make money through content creation. And I love content. I love making content. I love editing content. So it's all fun for me. So it's cool to be able to have this as a stream of revenue for the business also. So that was what the pivot looks like. It was just a really fun experience. So if you're thinking about pivoting, if it feels like it's time to pivot, I say do it, but have a strategy and a plan of what that looks like. All right, the fourth question, I feel like I've been talking, y'all. I've been talking. The fourth question, but the last question is, how do I build confidence as a business owner? So this is the thing about confidence. Confidence, I think sometimes can be a bit misconstrued about what it actually is. But the way that I define confidence is that there is just a knowingness and a certainty that I have about myself and who I am and the role that I play in this world. I think a lot of times people think it's just like a personality thing to just be confident. But I think it's more so of just a self-assuredness that you have about yourself. And so as a result, I think the personality that you give, or I should say that I give off to people, can come off in a lot of different ways to a lot of different people. I've heard from people that I give a very cold demeanor. I've heard that I give a very reserved demeanor. Some people think I'm really cool, chill, and laid back, which I like to think about myself. Some people perceive me as timid or docile, which I find that to be very funny. But at the end of the day, I just know who I am as a person. I know the things that I desire in this world, and I know how I need to navigate this world despite any adversity or challenges that come up. I am a really resilient person who has faced a lot of adversity, and I think because of that, I'm able to just move through the world in what people would consider confidence. And I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I just don't be caring and stressed about a lot of stuff too much. Because I feel like every day we're learning something new. We're trying to figure out how to navigate the world. So because of that, I don't really stress about too many things. I take things as they come. And if it's something that I really need to be concerned about, I have trusted people around me. I have wise counsel that I'll go to for advice if it's something that I feel like I really need support with. But I'm big on my relationship with God, Source, the Most High. So for me, honestly, when something comes up, I go to God first about it before I go to anybody else about it. And so I think that in itself really lends to what I would consider my own confidence, because if something comes up, I go to God about it. I sit, listen for what next steps I need to take. I'm big on following my intuition. In the South, we have something called following your first mind. So I'm always following my first mind, and it never steers me in the wrong direction. So I think that's where my confidence comes from. But at the end of the day, too, I recognize life is finite. And so I'm going to make the best of it. I'm going to do things. I'm going to try things at least once. If I like it, cool, I'm going to do it again. If I don't like it, I won't. And so I think that is where just this air of confidence comes from, of just try to live my best life that I have. I really have an amazing life, and so I'm really grateful for that. And so I think gratitude plays a part in confidence as well. And so that is where confidence comes from. Now in business, confidence is key, especially in consulting, right? That's, I think, one thing I've learned throughout the past 8 years of owning my company is that you have to be confident. Confidence in myself is important because people pick up on that, right? And so if they pick up on uncertainty, then people are either going to take advantage of it or they're not going to trust that I'm capable of doing what I say I do. And so confidence is really my only option when it comes to doing business because one, my clients are paying me big money to do the work that I say I'm capable of doing. And so I have to be able to be assured and certain about me producing the results that I say I'm going to produce. That confidence, you have to be able to lead with confidence in this type of work. I think also when it comes to business, confidence is necessary because I think it's a marker that I am not only proud of what I do, but I'm also certain about what I do as well. And so I feel like confidence is the only way for me to lead in this work. And so that is where my confidence comes from, just all of those things. When I was talking to the person who asked me this question, though, what I mentioned to her is that if she's trying to figure out where to find her confidence, I told her, I said, find people that you admire and study their personality and take bits and pieces of it and integrate it into your own personality. So for me, there are leaders in business who I like to watch and just study how they move through business, how they articulate themselves, how they communicate. So some of my favorite people are Azoma St. John. I love her, y'all. I love how she tells her stories and I love how she just don't care. I've really been able to study how she functions and I've adopted some of her traits into the way that I do business also. And then Emma Greed, I really love Emma. She moves through business as well. I love how she has this kindness about her personality, but I also know she not to be played with too. So I really love her in the way that she does business. Issa Rae is one of my favorite people when it comes to business because Issa don't care either, but she is who she is. And so for me, I think that also resonates a lot with me and how I function in business is that I am who I am. I'm very authentic about who I am, but I also don't play with me. So that is, I would say, 3 women who I really admire when it comes to do business. And so that's where when I think about my confidence, I also adopt traits from different women who I think are also beautifully confident as well and also authentic too. So that's Ask Doc. Those are the 4 questions I wanted to answer today. If this has put you in a position where you have some questions, ask me and I'd be happy to answer them for y'all. But I hope y'all have a beautiful day. Take care and I'll see y'all in the next video.